Good evening, folks. It is my pleasure to call the Wednesday, June 21st, 2023 meeting of the Farmville Planning Commission to order. Thank you to those that are in attendance in person, along with those that are watching via live stream. We will proceed with a roll call.
Mr. Patterson,
Here.
Ms. Johnson,
Here.
Mr. Davenport,
Here.
Mr. Miller, Ms. O'Connor,
Here.
Mr. Weiss,
Here.
Mr. Crute.
Here.
Alrighty. We will now ask for an approval of the minutes from the Wednesday, May 17th, 2023 meeting of the Farmville Planning Commission. If you have any corrections, please bring those forth.
Excuse me, Chairman, we need to approve the agenda first, please.
Oh, I always do that. We'll ask for an approval of the agenda.
So move.
Second.
Can we clarify who made that motion, please?
I did. And there was a tie for second.
Alrighty. With the motion and second, all those in favor of approving the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Alrighty. We will now ask for consideration of the minutes from the May 17th meeting. If there are any corrections, please share those now.
Mr. Chairman, I shared a few nits already with Michelle.
Excellent.
Motion to approve.
Anything substantive or
No, it's just
smaller?
like the word reciprocal showed up 3 times when it should have been reiterated or
Okay.
repeated. It's just weird stuff like that.
Motion to approve the minutes with those minor revisions made.
Second.
It has been motioned and second to approve the minutes with the minor corrections. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Alrighty, we have reached the public participation portion. This is the moment in the agenda for individuals to make statements on non-agenda items. If you choose to come forward to speak, you have 3 minutes to do so. Madam Clerk, anyone signed up?
No, sir.
Is there anyone in the audience that would care to make any statements on any non-agenda items? We will now move to a public hearing for case REZ 23-001, a request for amendment to the official zoning map to rezone approximately 31 acres from R1 to R2. The request to amend the future land use map to recategorize the site from low-density residential to moderate-density residential. The site is located on the 300 block of Marywood Farm Road and consists of parcels 003700, parentheses 0A, 00-060B, 003700, parentheses 0A, 00-061, and 003700, parentheses 0A, 00-062. We will now have our staff report.
Thank you. So this is a second public hearing to add an amendment to the official zoning map and an amendment to the future land use map and existing land use maps in the comprehensive plan. So this is an addition to the rezoning case that we heard last month, not a new case. And of course, the request is to rezone from R1 to R2, and it's approximately 31 acres. Staff findings is that it meets the standards for review of a rezoning. We were emailed one letter in support of the rezoning, which Ms. Watkins would read into the comments during the public hearing portion. I can take any questions, or well, I'll go to do this first. I did include the proposed maps. So this is the proposed zoning map with the change to the 3 parcels. The proposed existing land use with the change to the 3 parcels, and the proposed future land use map. And then I just included all of our sides from last month about the case. The staff recommends approval to town council. I can take any questions at this time.
Any questions regarding the staff report that was just shared and in your agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Ashley, the previous staff report, the one at the previous hearing in May on this, said the future land use recommendation was low-density residential. The current staff report says moderate. So can you help us understand the staff's thinking on that change?
Correct. It is an amendment to the future land use to go from what is in the comp plan as low density to what's requested as a moderate density. The request does state in their application that they don't plan on meeting the moderate density. They do plan on keeping about four units per acre, which aligns more with the low density. The change for this would be the lot sizes.
All righty. If there are no more questions related to the staff report, we will now seek a motion to open the public participation portion of this public hearing.
So moved. Second.
It has been moved and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All righty. So folks that have signed up to speak, you have 3 minutes to speak and to make statements regarding the request for amendment. Madam Clerk.
Kristen Fisher.
Good evening. I wanted to talk about the environmental and more ecological impacts by changing the zoning from low density to more moderate or higher density. So that area is right behind the Walmart Supercenter complex, which we all know has a very, very large parking area. This is what's referred to as an urban island, which means that the sun beats down on the concrete, right? There's not really any greenery in that area, and it causes an increase in temperatures, right? And not just in the summertime, where it has more of an effect, but also in the wintertime as well, right? And if you look at heat maps of the country, you can easily see urban, right, islands everywhere. I know we like to think of Farmville as not being very urban, but that doesn't mean that we don't have pockets of urban islands in Farmville, right? With Walmart being one of the larger ones. If it gets moved to moderate density or high density housing, that means there's going to be more pavement, right, that needs to occur in the area behind it, and more cars that will then be there as well, right? So now we're increasing the effect of that urban island, right, immediately behind it, making it larger. And we're also adding to our carbon footprint by having more cars and more carbon emissions. If it's kept at lower density, there's a chance that there can be more plant life, including native plant life, since we're removing a lot of the habitat for a lot of the animals and insects and migratory insects and migratory birds that pass through Farmville on their way. So by having more of these things, we can potentially mitigate some of the effects over time. There's also some health risks associated with these urban islands, right? So higher temperatures typically lead to higher nighttime temperatures, which don't alleviate the temperatures during the day. This can include affecting both the elderly and the younger populations, anybody with asthma, anybody that's susceptible to dehydration, right? And so I think there's kind of a multitude of aspects to this. It's not just easy as saying, of course, we can just have more places. We need to kind of look at the surrounding area and how it impacts overall. So the second consideration that I wanted to bring up was that the pump house and the Sewer Creek lines that would potentially flow right from the new area across the creek into Jesse's Way. So with sewer lines, right, it's not if it's going to leak, it's when it's going to leak over time. And so the more waste that's being put through the system, potentially for more to leak out of the system and have more of an ecological impact on both the surrounding environment and where the water flows to, right? So it's not just a, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, Ms. Fisher, your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty, any additional speakers in person?
Yes, sir. I have to read a statement to the Planning Commission. Dear Planning Commission, I am writing to express my support for rezoning case number REZ 23-001 for the 300 block of Marywood Road from R1 to R2 zoning. I believe this rezoning would benefit the community in several ways. First, it would allow for the construction for more affordable housing units. The current R1 zoning only allows for single-family homes with estate large-sized lots, which are often out of reach for many people or undesirable for many people. The R2 zoning would allow for construction of a variety of home types and smaller lot sizes, which would provide a diversity of housing options. It will also add much needed housing inventory to the area and will help employers attract employees. Second, it will create a nice transition from adjacent to commercial uses to lower density areas. By rezoning these parcels to R2, it would provide a more appropriate density buffer between the B3 zoning and R1 zoning. R2, as its definition states, is to create a mix of housing types located near shopping and employment centers. Third, it would increase tax revenue for the town of Farmville. The construction of new homes will generate additional property taxes and sale taxes. This additional revenue supports municipal services such as schools, parks, and libraries. I urge you to approve case number REZ 23-001 and support the rezoning of the property for 300 block of Marywood Road from R1 to R2 zoning. Sincerely, Kip LaFoon, LaFoon Realty.
Thank you so much. Any additional folks in the audience that would care to speak? If you could state your name and then sign in before you sit down. Yeah.
Hi, my name is David Domino, and I moved into Farmville with my family onto Jesse's Way in July of 2021. Much deliberation went into kind of making a major life and financial decision when we made this move. And we moved to Jesse's Way to really take advantage of what Farmville has to offer. Farmville is such a great kind of location, and we were very pleased with moving to Jesse's Way. And you know, the neighborhood is, you know, close proximity to a town center, and it's a very quiet, peaceful neighborhood with lots of trees and natural beauty, you know, allowing for privacy. Before we bought our house, we did our due diligence, and we were led to believe that the woodlands behind our property was a R1 designation where the owners could use the property to put residential homes, but that the residential homes would be in congruence with kind of current neighborhood characteristics of low-density residential properties. So I was kind of surprised that when I learned that the residential designation can be changed to R2, which means kind of higher density residential development with the potential for things like townhomes and so forth. During the meeting on May 17th, the gentleman from Harper's Associates said they had no real intention to really build much over the R2 designation, and that they're requesting the designation just essentially kind of give themselves some flexibility. But my fear is if the town kind of grants this request, then the town does not have as much kind of latitude to make sure that they kind of keep their word where they be on the lower end of that spectrum of the R2 residential development. And going to an R2 designation can potentially impact the surrounding residents in terms of kind of increased noise, less privacy, kind of a negative impact onto the ecology or the natural environment, and of course increased traffic. Now I know the contractors said that they conducted a study and that the study concluded that there would be no significant impact on traffic patterns. However, this study is not an independent study, as it's funded by kind of Harper's Associates. And so what they deemed that might not be significant impact on traffic does not mean that there would be no impact on traffic at all, or what maybe the residents would consider to be significant impact on traffic. And since this is off one of the busiest streets in Farmville, I can only conclude that this increase in traffic in an already stressed area would have impacts on not just the neighborhood, but the kind of larger Farmville community. So I'm really kind of coming out against the redesignation to an R2 because of the reasons I mentioned, kind of the increased noise, less privacy, the ecological impact, and so I kind of...
I'm sorry, sir, your time is up.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Anyone else from the audience? If not, we will welcome a motion to conclude the public hearing, public participation.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. All those in favor of closing the public hearing signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Move into our deliberative portion. And just to remember, we're deliberating jointly the REZ 23-001, the future land use map, along with the previous public hearing that was held in May for the project in full. So just remember that if you get to the point in the evening where you care to put forth a recommendation.
I will also mention that Mr. Allen is here, so if you do have any questions for the developer during your deliberation, he is here to answer your questions.
Looks like we've got some contemplative minds churning.
I mean, I'll say that by and large, this is in line with the comprehensive plan, transitioning from business districts into lower density residential areas. And the idea, at least what's proposed here, I can appreciate a couple statements there that we, of course, don't have a mechanism in place to ensure that it develops in this way. That said, looking at this, the entire backside where that steep slope is going down to the creek area, I think limits some of this parcel's ability to even go to the maximum limit of what even R2 would be. So overall, I think this fits what the comprehensive plan and, before the ideas that we had of the community. So, I feel pretty good that this is a good plan here. I really don't have a whole lot of questions here. I'll leave it at that.
Excuse me, I feel very much the same way Jerry does. I feel like this really fits with the comprehensive plan. I like, in addition to the fact that it's that transition from the commercial to the residential, but I also like the variety of housing this brings to us that we really don't have. And it just seems like a well thought out and project that I think would benefit the community.
Mr. Chairman, I have similar views. There's a lot about this I like in terms of mix of use, mix of housing types, I should say, and different lot sizes and all that, but I have a major concern about it too that I think is solvable. If we rezone this, and Ashley, please correct me if I'm wrong, the rezoning is not conditioned on this specific plan. The applicant is not bound to execute this specific plan, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So in the course of further due diligence or economic circumstances changing, whatever, the plan could change and the density could go to what R2 allows. Right now, it's basically equivalent to R1 density, but with R2 planning, with lot sizes and a mix of housing types. So I'm concerned, including based on the comments from the public, about the impacts of this, particularly if the density shot up like it could in R2. So the quandary I'm in is there are no proffers that are basically saying we will keep the density as R1 or equivalent to R1, but do an R2 type of residential development in terms of the mix. And so I'm concerned about, my major concern is the density issue, losing R1 density to R2 density, but I like the flexibility that R2 allows with the housing types and the lot sizes. So, and I know the applicant is here, and maybe, we can't require the density stay the same. We can't require a proffer by definition. It can be offered by the applicant. So I just wanted to express, there's a lot I like about it, but I'm hung up on the major concern about possible density shooting up to about, under the current code, about 2.5 times what it would be in R1.
Mr. Chair, can we ask Mr. Allen about the plausibility or the probability of that happening?
Yeah, Mr. Allen, if you want to speak to that, we'd welcome it.
Thank you, everybody, for letting me speak tonight. Rat, thanks for your comments. I definitely appreciate where you're coming from. When we did that land plan and we laid it out, there are constraints on that side of the property, and given some concerns that we heard very early on, we understood that an enhanced buffer would be necessary, and in connection with that and the constraints, we've determined that the buffer could be anywhere from, at the smallest, at 100 feet to 135 feet. And what we've shown, we think, is what the market is most likely to support. And the last meeting that we had, we tried to articulate that we thought it was important not to dictate exactly how that would be, like what that ratio may ultimately be. But we feel pretty good after polling the builders that we work with that that ratio is close to about 50-50 with a townhomes versus single family. And so I feel pretty good about the density that we have shown. I think within the usable area, I think we're talking about a handful more lots. I don't think we're talking a major amount of density that could be added there just based on what we can build into because of the slopes and the creek. So I definitely appreciate that concern. As a technical matter, I don't know, the subdivision process, I think, comes back to you guys. Is that right? I mean, Scott's not here, but I just don't remember, but I thought there was maybe just discussion that there would be another time where we would actually have to go and
approve
do
the subdivision.
more
Yeah, it
work.
does have
So
to come back.
there is another opportunity for, I think, by virtue of the process, where it's going to come back to this body, and so we'll have to be, substantially, with what we've shown, we will have to be substantially compliant with that.
So I agree with everything you said, but absent a proffer, there's no way to keep my major concern is the density. And it sounds like we seem to be in agreement that the density, the feasible density is about what you've shown,
That's right.
which is equivalent to R1.
That's right.
I mean, that arguably could change based on further due diligence or planning. What I'd just like to see is that we basically lock in the density at or near the R1 density. And I think that would address a lot of the other concerns that we're hearing, because by right, you could do R1, and that slope is the slope, you couldn't develop it anyway. So you're kind of hemmed in a sense with what you could do even if it were by right R1.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not going to proffer anything tonight, but I think
understand.
what you've considered, what you've told us, we certainly are very sensitive to that and aware, and we think that when we go through the subdivision process, what we bring forward for subdivision is going to be very similar to what we're showing you today. And if it isn't, then I believe that you've got the ability to say no.
Ashley, is the subdivision approval, assuming the rezoning happened, is the subdivision approval administrative, or does it come to the planning commission?
It is not administrative
It does
for
come-
if it's a single lot, it can be administrative. But if it's multiple lots,
Well,
it comes back
okay,
before.
gotcha. Thank you.
I'd have to double check if it's both the planning commission and town council, or if it's just one.
Maybe just one.
Any other questions of Mr. Allen while we've got him?
I'll make a motion that we recommend to town council approval of REZ 23-001.
Second.
Ashley, did we want to roll both in?
They have the same number, so you can do it at the same time. Yes.
That has been moved and second. We will ask, is there any more deliberation? We'll ask for a roll call.
Ms. O'Connor,
Aye.
Mr. Weiss,
No.
Ms. Johnson,
Aye.
Mr. Davenport,
Aye.
Mr. Patterson,
Aye.
Mr. Crute,
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Ready?
I can clarify for Rhett, it just goes to town council. It does not come back before planning commission, but it does go to town council for approval.
Alrighty, seeing that we have no old business, we have no new business, we will see if there are any comments from commissioners.
Yeah, Ashley, is there an update on the search for the community development department head?
I will leave that to Scott. He will be back next week.
I did see Lee at Walker's this past weekend. He says hello. He was coming to do his final move out. He said life is different on the Eastern Shore. So, alrighty, staff updates.
As of right now, we do not have any cases pending for July. We will leave the meeting on the books for right now, and I will submit an update when I have more information.
Ashley, what do you envision in terms of agenda items that might carry us through the portions of the rest of the year?
I don't have anything for the foreseeable future. It would be a discussion with Scott to see if there's anything that we need to bring before Planning Commission during the year.
Okay, keep us busy. We've enjoyed it. Any other questions of staff? If not, item 11, let's take it away. Adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.